If, then, anyone would enter into the secret life, real character and true condition of persons and things, so as to know the absolute truth concerning them, he must get mentally still, hold his attention steadily upon them, and keep in perfectly receptive and unbiased attitude toward them. When this attitude of mind and will is perfectly held, the vibrations on the psychic ether from the spontaneous activities of the object upon which the attention is centered, will be gathered up in the personal life, and made to reproduce to and in the personal consciousness, the original condition that produced them, and thus be made to tell their own story without dissimulation or abating one jot or tittle of the truth in the matter. The same holds true of any particular or special thing which it is desirable and legitimate to know concerning them. When the attention is held in this receptive attitude upon such specific matter to learn the exact truth concerning it, that particular truth will be made clear and certain to the listening consciousness. It will thus be seen that this necessary listening and receptive attitude is possible only when the soul desires the absolute truth independent of all prejudgment, or any bias of personal consideration. We do not listen to another's conversation while we are talking to him, neither can we receive the true story of another's life or character on the psychic plane with our mind upon him, full of active prejudgment and the bias of personal considerations. This attitude of desiring and seeking the truth and nothing but the truth, independent of all personal consideration and bias, involves also the attitude and determination to be absolutely just on the basis of this truth, independent of all personal consideration or bias of any kind whatsoever. This attitude will prevent any misuse of the knowledge of the truth thus gained, and also keep the desire to that only which is legitimate. The desire for that which is not legitimate destroys the condition of reliability. This twofold attitude is an absolute necessity for the successful development and exercise of the psychometric power and true spiritual seership, and the holding of this attitude will most certainly enable anyone to do this. But for one to hold this impersonal and impartial attitude absolutely, he will need, as said, to come in touch and sympathetic unity with the impersonal life and spirit of the divine and absolute, which should be the first or supreme desire of every one. This awakens and enthrones the divine and impersonal ego of his own being, which is always in unity and oneness with the astral world, and holds the personal life in the consciousness of its spiritual supremacy. This is why it emphasizes the necessity of first opening the spiritual consciousness and developing the inner or spirit sight, and enthroning the spiritual nature in the personal life, in which the impersonal and impartial attitude becomes the spontaneous and permanent law of the life. The three successive steps, then, which open the soul to free and unobstructed activity and communication on both the psychic and spiritual planes, may be summed up and briefly stated thus. First, get the personal ego still, and empty the mind and feelings of every bias and standard of self and sense, that is, put out of the mind everything relating to the sense life and the desires of self, thus putting the soul in a perfectly receptive attitude for the unbiased and unobstructed revelation of truth. Second, when this passive state is fully induced, fix and hold the attention in the passive yet expectant attitude upon the specific object about which the truth is desired. Third, these two steps having been fully taken, stand firmly and persistently in the receptive and listening attitude toward the object for the immediate revelation of the truth concerning it, and in the full expectation of getting it, and according to your faith shall he done unto you. This receptive state, and listening, expectant attitude, will certainly open the consciousness to the psychic vibrations which write unerringly their story on the receptive mind. If, in this third step, we entertain doubts and questionings, We are not holding the receptive and listening attitude. This was the constant attitude and normal condition of the masters, and so without study or effort he always stood in the light of absolute truth concerning everything with which they came into personal relations. To gain the mastery of these 3 steps, so as to be able to assume this attitude at will, requires no more qualification, attention and persevering application than does the mastery of any of the ordinary accomplishments, as music, art, or the mechanical handicrafts of industry, but, as in all these, the neophyte may be greatly helped by the personal sympathy and guidance of those who have had experience in overcoming, and have attained some degree of experimental adeptship. Very few, if any, will succeed absolutely without this. There is one advantage in seeking the mastery of these 3 steps over that of the ordinary accomplishments of life, and that is the immediate help of divine inspiration if the seeker begin at the center of his being, since this brings him at once under the transforming chemistry of the spiritual life, and the awakening touch of the quickening power that comes directly from the supreme center of the divine and absolute. The benefit derived from the ministry of others is the help they may give in bringing one to the true attitude within himself. He who gains the mastery of these 3 steps, so as to be able to assume and hold this attitude at will, nay, to hold it as the permanent and normal attitude of his life, by having applied it to the opening and coordination of the 3 planes of activity in the personal consciousness, has gained the psychometric key to all legitimate knowledge, wisdom, seership and occult mastery of being, and may take his place in the mighty brotherhood of the Illuminati, Magi, and Hierophants of the ages, the twice-born sons of God, who is immanent, and brothers of the Master, who was the greatest clairvoyant that has ever lived.